Hey listeners, welcome to today's episode of Hot Corner with myself, your host, Mitchell Margris. This is the show where we talk about everything and anything that has to do with baseball, specifically Major League Baseball. That's right, the MLB. Today we're going to be talking about the Seattle Mariners, the team out of the Pacific Northwest, based out of, yep, you guessed it, Seattle. This year they had quite a few splashes that they made in the season. In fact, all the way until the end, we're right there for the wild card position. And halfway through the season, they actually held first place in their division over the defending national world champs, the Houston Astros. This offseason has been quite the turn for the Seattle Mariners fans already, with not only a pitcher from their starting rotation, but the pitcher from their starting rotation, James Paxton, being traded. That's right, their ace, James Paxton, traded to not again the New York Yankees, as if they weren't good enough this year. The New York Yankees send over their number one prospect, Jesus Sheffield, who is another left-handed pitcher, 21 years old, to the Mariners with a couple other prospects for James Paxton. Big move for the Mariners. Do we like it? Well, let's talk about some of the pros and cons of this trade. Mariners. Pros, they get to rebuild that farm system that is, shall we say it, awful. They have only one prospect in the top 100 prospects of the whole league. They only have two prospects that are in the top 150 of the whole league. And, yep, you guessed it, only two prospects in the whole top 200 prospects of the whole MLB farm systems. That's including single A, double A, AAA, their farm system is depleted. Granted, they have some pretty young guns up on their MLB team. I mean, their whole outfield with Mitch Haniger, Ben Gamel, Guillermo Heredia, they're all under the age of 26. So they do have some young guns up on the team, but that's just not enough for years to come. So the Mariners are looking to try and reestablish that farm system, and they're going to do it by getting rid of some arms that they didn't think that they were going to have next year, starting with James Paxton. Paxton goes to the free agency after this year, after this next season. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, and they just were afraid that they weren't going to be able to re-sign him. Jerry DiPoto came out and said publicly that they're looking at trying to rebuild the program, and what better way to rebuild the program than to go trade somebody that you don't think you're going to have for very much longer and get some prospects from them. So all in all, they also grab another left-handed pitcher and an outfield prospect who looks like he could turn out for the best. He's got a little pop to him. He's got a little bit of speed to him, which the Mariners like to use to their advantage. So we'll see how that works out for him. But the cons, I mean, you lose your number one starter. So where do you go from here? The good thing for the Mariners is that they have just drafted an arm out of Humboldt State that they think can eventually be an ace in the league, and so we're hoping that that'll come up. And then also you got the likes of Marco Gonzalez, who can step up into that number one spot here in the next year or two, which we got 4 years of club control still on him, so that's always great to see. Got him in a trade last year with the St. Louis Cardinals. You got a really strong bullpen coming back. You got Diaz that's still in your closing role, so you can hand the game to him with a 1, 2, 3-run lead in the 8th or 9th, and for the majority of the time, he's going to be able to convert that as a save and possibly even a win for you if you put him in a tie game situation. So you got a bullpen that's got a lot of arms in there. You got Nicasio, you got Altavilla. I mean, you got a lot of arms in that bullpen. Colomé that we grabbed from Tampa Bay last year. A lot of arms that are going to be able to do a lot of good through the middle innings. It's just trying to find that pitcher that's going to be able to come out and make a solid start for a good 5, 6, 7 innings sometimes to give your bullpen a little bit of a rest. But we'll see what's happening, especially with the decline of Felix Hernandez lately. I mean, he racks up 15 losses on the year, has an over 3.5 ERA. It bounces between the bullpen and a starting role. I mean, how much longer is the king going to remain the king in the Pacific Northwest? We'll just have to wait to see what happens with that. And with all the trade rumors rolling around now, who knows what's going to happen? We've got Jerry DiPoto out there shopping Robinson Cano, which I like to look at the fact that we're trying to unload some of the contract that we have given to him, and you still got $120 million guaranteed to him through 2023. And I think that it's a good idea to try and go and free some space as long as the Mariners are going to do something with that money that they freed up. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But then you got things like Edwin Diaz is now being put into trade talks, and so many rumors you can listen to. But fans, for those of you guys that are listening at home that are Seattle Mariners fans, I wouldn't buy too much into the Edwin Diaz talks, because the whole idea of making trades this offseason is to try and reestablish the farm system for the Seattle Mariners. And in order to do that, you got to get younger. Well, why would you go out and trade somebody who's going to be a part of your program for so long? Edwin Diaz is only 22 years old, folks, so there's no reason to go and fire sale him, because he's still got a good 8 years left in his arm. So he is one of the staples that we should build around. And they have come out and said that they want to build around him and they want to build around Mitch Haniger. And so they're not going to go and try and trade things away. And people are talking about top prospect for the Mariners, Kyle Lewis, that came out of Maryland as an outfield prospect, trying to trade him. But I don't think you're going to get a whole lot in return for him with all the ACL injuries that he's been coming back from. And also, I think the Mariners still have a lot of faith in the guy to be able to try and be the prospect that they drafted with their number one pick. So I think it's really interesting to see what's going to happen for the rest of the offseason for the Seattle Mariners. But like I said, trade rumors are just trade rumors, folks. I wouldn't buy too much into Mitch Haniger being left from the Mariners or Edwin Diaz being sold for something. Yes, Robinson Cano, they are actively shopping, because although he's a 300-plus bat a year and we could really use that offense in the lineup, it is a lot of money that we're guaranteed to him, and he's got to decline here pretty soon. So they're trying to unload it on somebody who's a contender and wants to win right now and will eat some of that money. And there is a couple prospects that are coming out of the Japanese league, which everybody knows the Mariners are big fans of the Japanese league, especially after the resurgence of Ichiro and being able to grab him from over in Japan and coming in and being an MVP and Rookie of the Year all in one. It's a big push for the Mariners to try and grab those Japanese talent, because they believe that they got a lot of talent and they can get them for a little bit cheaper because they're coming from a different league and they haven't proved themselves yet. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that freed up money that they're trying to get from a Robinson Cano trade. Felix Hernandez is another name that when you hear the trade rumors for it, I would not skip past it too much, because Felix Hernandez has definitely declined. And I'm sorry to say it, folks, but I think the King's Court has finally been closed. The guy doesn't even have a guaranteed starting role. And I think it would be beneficial for Felix Hernandez to be able to get moved to a contender. The guy deserves to be in the playoffs, and I don't know if the Mariners can give that to him anytime soon. So moving him to a contender, just like the Mariners did with Ken Griffey Jr. when they sent him off to the Chicago White Sox before he moved over to the Cincinnati Reds. The Chicago White Sox were in the running to win the World Series that year, and they knew that Ken Griffey Jr.'s time was done with the Mariners, so they wanted to bring him to a contender so that he could get that chance of winning his ring that he so much deserves. And so I see the same thing happening with Felix Hernandez. It's just we might not get as much in return as we did for Ken Griffey Jr. because Felix definitely has declined. But like I said, folks, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do for the rest of this offseason and how much of a rebuilding project they go with. But that's all we got for time today in today's podcast of Hot Corner. So go ahead and join us next week for our next episode of everything and anything that happens in the baseball world of the MLB. And we'll be talking about the future deals that the Seattle Mariners make and possibly what else is going to be happening in the free agency. Nice to see you guys around. Lend a listening ear. We love you. Later.